Jake Morrison looked out the window of the transport ship and saw the massive Galactic Research Station floating in space. The station was bigger than any city he had ever seen back on Earth. It spun slowly around the green planet below called Kepler 442b. Jake pressed his face against the cold metal window and watched hundreds of alien ships dock to the station like metal insects feeding on something huge. Lisa Grant sat next to him reading data files on her tablet. She was the communications expert for their mission and one of only 2 humans chosen for this expedition. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the standard blue uniform that marked her as part of the research team. She looked up from her tablet and smiled at Jake. The other passengers on the transport were not human. Jake counted 6 different alien species, all talking in their own languages. The tall blue ones with long necks were called Zephyrians, and they seemed to be in charge of everything. Their leader was Commander Vexitar, who stood almost 3 meters tall and had 4 arms instead of 2. His skin was bright blue like the ocean, and his eyes were completely black with no whites showing. The insect-like creatures clicking their jaws together were called Thraxians. They had 6 legs and bodies covered in hard shells that looked like armor. Their heads moved in quick, jerky motions, and they made constant clicking sounds when they talked to each other. Jake found them disturbing to watch, but tried not to stare. The strangest aliens were the Nexari, who looked like living crystals. They were see-through, and their bodies changed colors when they communicated. Instead of voices, they made musical sounds that reminded Jake of wind chimes. When they were happy, the sounds were high and light, but when they were angry, the tones became deep and harsh. There were also the Corvani, who looked somewhat like humans, but had gray skin and extra fingers on each hand. They were shorter than humans and moved very quietly. The Deltians were covered in fur and had cat-like faces with big yellow eyes. The last group were the Vorthak, who had tentacles instead of arms and breathed through gills on their necks. When the transport docked at the station, Jake and Lisa gathered their equipment bags and followed the aliens through the airlock. The station was enormous inside, with corridors that stretched in every direction. The gravity felt different from Earth, and Jake had to adjust his walking to avoid stumbling. Alien crew members moved past them carrying equipment and talking in languages that sounded like music or static or grinding metal. Commander Vexitar led them to a large meeting room with windows that showed the planet below. The jungle world looked peaceful from space, but Jake knew it was one of the most dangerous places in the galaxy. The atmosphere was thick with poisonous gases, and the wildlife was extremely hostile to most life forms. Only humans seemed able to survive on the surface for more than a few hours. The meeting room had chairs and tables designed for different alien body types. Jake and Lisa sat in the human-sized chairs, while the other species arranged themselves around the large central table. Holographic displays showed maps of the planet's surface and energy readings from the jungle below. Commander Vexitar activated the main display and spoke in perfect English, though his accent made some words hard to understand. He explained that their sensors had detected unusual energy signatures from deep in the jungle. The readings suggested some kind of ancient structures that might contain valuable archaeological information. Jake raised his hand to speak, and several aliens made sounds that he realized were laughter. Commander Vexitar looked down at him with what might have been amusement. Jake stood up and cleared his throat before speaking. He told the group about his research into pre-galactic civilizations and his theory that the energy readings indicated technology far more advanced than anything currently known. He suggested that the structures might be millions of years old and could contain scientific knowledge that would benefit all galactic species. The reaction was immediate and harsh. The Thraxians clicked their mandibles rapidly, which Lisa whispered was their way of showing extreme amusement. The Nexari produced high-pitched musical tones that hurt Jake's ears. The Zephyrians made deep rumbling sounds in their throats that sounded like giant engines starting up. Commander Vextar held up one of his 4 hands for silence. He looked directly at Jake and spoke slowly as if talking to a child. He said that humans were the newest members of the Galactic Council and had only been part of galactic civilization for 50 years. He explained that more advanced species had been exploring space for thousands of years and would certainly recognize truly advanced technology when they found it. The Corvani representative spoke up in a thin voice that sounded like air leaking from a tire. She said that human theories about ancient supercivilizations were well known throughout the galaxy and were considered primitive mythology. She suggested that humans had not yet developed the scientific understanding needed to properly analyze archaeological evidence. One of the Deltians made a purring sound and said that humans were useful for manual labor and basic ground surveys, but should leave the real scientific work to species with proper education and advanced equipment. Several other aliens made agreeing sounds. Jake felt his face getting hot with embarrassment and anger, but he forced himself to stay calm. Lisa reached over and touched his arm in support. Commander Vextar announced the mission assignments, and Jake realized they were being given the worst job possible. While the alien teams would remain safely in orbit using advanced scanners and analysis equipment, Jake and Lisa were assigned to investigate what the aliens called simple stone structures in the deepest part of the jungle. Commander Vextar said this would be good practice for humans and might help them understand how real archaeological work was done. The Thraxian team leader made more clicking sounds and suggested that the humans might find some interesting rocks, or pottery fragments if they were lucky. The other aliens found this extremely funny, and the meeting room filled with various sounds of alien laughter. Jake and Lisa were given basic survival equipment and told to prepare for surface deployment in 6 hours. As they left the meeting room, Jake heard Commander Vextar telling the other team leaders that humans were persistent if nothing else, and might actually find something useful even if they did not understand what it was. Walking through the station, corridors toward their assigned quarters, Jake felt angry and determined at the same time. He had spent his entire career studying ancient civilizations, and he knew his theories were correct. The energy readings from the planet's surface were unlike anything in the current galactic database, and that meant they came from something truly extraordinary. Lisa walked beside him carrying her equipment bag and looking thoughtful. She finally spoke and said that the aliens might be making a mistake by underestimating human abilities. She reminded Jake that humans had survived and thrived on planets that would kill most galactic species within hours. Jake nodded and looked out another window at the green planet below. Somewhere in that dangerous jungle was the discovery that would change everything. He could feel it calling to him across the empty space. The aliens could laugh all they wanted, but soon they would understand that humans were much more than they appeared to be. The dropship shook violently as it entered the atmosphere of Kepler 442b. Jake gripped his safety harness and watched through the small window as thick green clouds swirled past. The pilot was a Corvani who kept making nervous, chittering sounds as the ship bounced through the turbulent air. Lisa sat across from him, checking their equipment one final time. Their gear was basic compared to what the alien teams had. 2 standard field packs with food for 7 days, water purification tablets, a simple medical kit, and basic camping equipment. They had been given a short-range communicator that would work for about 10 kilometers and a basic scanner that could detect metal and energy sources, but nothing more advanced. The alien team's monitoring from orbit had laughed when Jake requested better equipment. Commander Vextar had said that humans needed to learn to work with simple tools before they could be trusted with advanced technology. The Thraxian team leader had clicked his mandibles and suggested that sharp sticks might be more appropriate for human development level. The dropship finally broke through the cloud layer, and Jake saw the jungle for the first time. It stretched in every direction like a green ocean with no end. The trees were enormous, some reaching heights of over 200 meters, with canopies so thick that no sunlight reached the ground. Strange flying creatures moved between the branches. and Jake could see flashes of bright colors that might have been flowers or warning displays from dangerous animals. The landing site was a small clearing about 50 kilometers from their target area. The Corvani pilot refused to go any closer, saying the energy readings in that region interfered with his navigation systems. He promised to return in 7 days, but warned them that if they missed the pickup window, they would be stranded until the next research mission arrived in 6 months. Jake and Lisa grabbed their packs and jumped down from the ship onto the soft jungle floor. The air was thick and humid and smelled like rotting plants mixed with something sweet and chemical. The gravity was slightly stronger than Earth normal, and Jake felt the extra weight in his legs immediately. The dropship lifted off quickly and disappeared into the green canopy above, leaving them alone in the alien wilderness. The silence lasted only a few seconds before the jungle came alive with sounds. Strange bird calls echoed from the trees, while something large crashed through the undergrowth nearby. Jake heard a sound like metal scraping against stone that he hoped was just insects but could not be sure. Lisa activated their communicator and reported their safe landing to the orbital station. Commander Vextar's voice crackled through the static, reminding them to be careful and to report anything interesting they might find. Jake could hear amusement in the alien's tone and knew that none of the orbital teams expected them to discover anything important. Several alien voices in the background were already placing bets on how long the humans would survive. Jake pulled out his scanner and took their first readings. The device showed normal jungle readings in every direction except southeast, where it detected faint energy signatures about 40 kilometers away. The readings were exactly what had brought the research mission to this planet, but Jake's scanner was too basic to provide detailed analysis. They started walking southeast, following game trails when they could find them, and cutting through dense vegetation when necessary. The jungle was unlike anything Jake had experienced on Earth. The plants seemed more aggressive, with thorns that moved to catch passing animals and flowers that released clouds of spores when disturbed. Lisa warned him to avoid touching anything they did not recognize. Within an hour, they encountered their first dangerous wildlife. A creature that looked like a cross between a spider and a snake dropped from a tree branch directly toward Jake's head. He dove sideways, and the thing hit the ground where he had been standing. It was about 2 meters long with 8 legs and a mouth full of needle-sharp teeth. The creature hissed at them and shot a stream of yellow liquid that burned holes in the nearby plants. Lisa pulled out a flare and ignited it. The bright light and chemical smell drove the creature back into the trees, but Jake could see its glowing eyes watching them from the darkness above. They moved quickly away from the area while more eyes appeared in the branches around them. The first day was exhausting. They covered only 12 kilometers due to the difficult terrain and constant dangers. Every step required careful planning as they avoided poisonous plants, unstable ground, and predators that seemed to hunt in coordinated packs. Jake's scanner continued to show stronger energy readings as they moved southeast, but the jungle grew more dangerous with each kilometer. That night, they made camp in a small cave that Lisa found using her knowledge of animal behavior. She explained that most jungle predators avoided caves due to the risk of being trapped by whatever lived inside. They set up a small campfire using dry wood and took turns keeping watch while the others slept. Jake woke during Lisa's watch to find her staring at something in the darkness outside their cave. She held a finger to her lips for silence and pointed toward the jungle. Jake saw lights moving between the trees, small blue glows that drifted through the air like floating lanterns. The lights moved in patterns that seemed almost intelligent, gathering and dispersing in ways that suggested communication. Lisa whispered that she had been watching the lights for over an hour and was convinced they showed some kind of organized behavior. Jake activated his scanner, but it showed only normal background readings with no indication of technology or artificial energy sources. The lights continued their strange dance for another 20 minutes before fading away into the deep jungle. Second day brought new challenges as they entered a region where the trees grew so close together that walking became almost impossible. They were forced to climb through the lower branches, moving from tree to tree like the native creatures they occasionally glimpsed in the canopy above. Jake's scanner readings grew stronger, but the device also began showing interference patterns that made precise readings difficult. Late in the afternoon, Lisa spotted something that made her stop suddenly. She pointed to a large tree about 50 meters away, and Jake saw what had caught her attention. The trunk was perfectly straight and showed signs of geometric patterns in the bark that looked almost artificial. When they got closer, Jake realized the patterns were not natural growth but deliberate markings carved deep into the living wood. The symbols were unlike anything in the Galactic database, but Jake felt a strange familiarity when he looked at them. The patterns seemed to follow mathematical principles that reminded him of ancient human art and architecture. He took detailed scans and photographs, while Lisa examined the surrounding area for more marked trees. They found 17 more marked trees in a rough circle around the first one. Each tree showed the same type of geometric patterns, but in different arrangements that suggested they might be some kind of coordinate system or map. Jake's scanner detected metal traces in the carved symbols, indicating that whatever made the marks had used tools containing unknown alloys. As the sun set on their second day, Jake realized they had found something important. The marked trees were clearly artificial and showed signs of technology beyond current galactic understanding. When he tried to report their discovery to the orbital station, the communicator only produced static and interference. Commander Vextar's voice, finally, came through the noise, but the signal was weak and broken. Jake tried to explain about the marked trees, but the alien commander seemed to think they had found simple native carvings made by primitive animals. The communication ended with Vextar telling them to continue their survey and stop wasting time on irrelevant findings. That night, Jake studied his scanner readings and photographs of the tree markings. The energy signatures were definitely stronger in this area and seemed to be coming from somewhere underground. The geometric patterns on the trees pointed in specific directions that might indicate the location of whatever was generating the energy readings. Lisa agreed that they were close to something important, but warned that the jungle was becoming more dangerous as they moved deeper into unexplored territory. She had noticed that the normal sounds of wildlife were becoming quieter, suggesting that even the native animals avoided this region. Jake looked at his compass and scanner readings one more time before settling down to sleep. Tomorrow they would follow the directions indicated by the tree markings and discover what secrets lay hidden in the heart of this deadly jungle. The aliens might be laughing at them now, but Jake was certain that their laughter would stop very soon. Jake woke before dawn on their third day and immediately checked his scanner. The energy readings had grown much stronger during the night and now showed a massive source directly ahead of their position. Lisa was already awake and packing their gear with quick, efficient movements. She pointed toward the jungle ahead where a faint glow was visible through the thick canopy. They broke camp quickly and began moving toward the energy source. The jungle here was different from anything they had encountered before. The trees were enormous beyond belief, with trunks that would take hundreds of people holding hands to circle. The undergrowth was sparse, and the ground was covered with a soft carpet of leaves that muffled every sound. Jake noticed that his scanner readings were becoming unstable as they got closer to their target. The device would show massive energy, spikes one moment, and then normal background readings the next. Lisa suggested that whatever they were approaching might be using some kind of camouflage or interference system that confused their basic equipment. After 2 hours of walking, they reached the edge of a large clearing where the morning sunlight could actually reach the ground. In the center of the clearing stood what appeared to be a huge stone pyramid covered in thick vines and jungle growth. The structure was at least 100 meters tall and twice as wide at the base. From a distance, it looked like nothing more than a hill covered with vegetation. Jake activated his communicator and tried to report their discovery to the orbital station. Commander Vexistar's voice came through clearly this time, and Jake described the pyramid structure in detail. The alien commander's response was immediate and dismissive. He said that their advanced scanners showed nothing but dense jungle in that location, and suggested that the humans were seeing things that were not really there. The Thraxian team leader's voice joined the conversation with rapid clicking sounds that Lisa translated as extreme amusement. He said that humans were known for their active imaginations and tendency to see patterns where none existed. Commander Vextar agreed and told Jake to take some photographs of their discovery so the real scientists could explain what they were actually looking at. Jake felt anger building in his chest but forced himself to stay calm. He took dozens of photographs from every angle while Lisa examined the base of the structure. She called him over to look at what she had found, and Jake saw that she was right to be excited. Up close, the stone surface was clearly not natural rock, but some kind of metal alloy that had been designed to look like stone. The metal surface was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse slightly, with an internal rhythm that reminded Jake of a heartbeat. When he pressed his hand against it, the surface changed color slightly, becoming darker under his palm. Lisa tried the same thing and got the same response, indicating that the structure was somehow reacting to human contact. They spent the morning exploring the perimeter of the pyramid, looking for any kind of entrance or access point. The structure appeared to be completely sealed, with no visible doors or windows anywhere on its surface. Jake's scanner showed that the metal walls were at least 5 meters thick, and the energy source was definitely coming from inside the pyramid. Just before noon, Lisa found something interesting on the eastern side of the structure. Hidden beneath layers of vines and organic growth was a section of wall covered with symbols similar to those they had seen carved in the trees. The symbols were arranged in complex geometric patterns that seemed to follow mathematical principles Jake recognized from his studies of ancient human civilizations. The symbols were not carved into the metal surface, but appeared to be part of the original construction. They glowed faintly with their own internal light and seemed to pulse in rhythm with the wall itself. Jake counted over 300 individual symbols arranged in 17 different groups across a section of wall about 10 meters wide. Lisa pointed out that the symbols appeared to be some kind of puzzle or combination lock. She had noticed that certain symbols would glow brighter when touched in specific sequences. Jake began studying the mathematical relationships between the symbol groups while Lisa documented everything with her camera. After 3 hours of careful analysis, Jake believed he understood the basic structure of the puzzle. The symbols represented mathematical concepts including prime numbers, geometric relationships, and what appeared to be star positions. The sequence required solving 17 different mathematical problems in the correct order to unlock whatever mechanism controlled access to the pyramid. Jake started with the simplest mathematical sequence and touched the symbols in order. When he completed the first group correctly, all 17 symbol groups pulsed with bright light for several seconds. Lisa encouraged him to continue, and Jake moved on to the more complex mathematical relationships. The seventh sequence required calculating the geometric relationship between specific star positions shown in the symbol pattern. Jake recognized the star pattern as one that would have been visible from Earth approximately 4 million years ago. The realization sent chills down his spine as he understood that whoever built this structure had detailed knowledge of Earth's ancient sky. By late afternoon, Jake had solved 16 of the 17 symbol sequences. The final group was the most complex and appeared to require knowledge of advanced mathematical principles that were beyond current galactic science. Jake studied the symbols for over an hour before realizing that the solution was based on mathematical concepts that humans had discovered independently during their development on Earth. When Jake touched the final sequence of symbols, the entire wall began to vibrate with a deep, thrumming sound that seemed to come from deep underground. The symbol groups pulsed with increasing brightness, while the metal surface became warm enough to feel through their gloves. A section of wall about 3 meters wide began to sink into the ground, revealing a dark opening beyond. Jake activated his communicator and reported their breakthrough to the orbital station. Commander Vextar's response was immediate and harsh. He accused the humans of damaging primitive native structures and ordered them to stop their activities immediately. The Corvani team leader suggested that Jake and Lisa had probably triggered some kind of natural geological process that was creating the illusion of an artificial entrance. Jake ignored the alien voices and activated a small flashlight to peer into the opening. The entrance led to a corridor that extended deep into the structure with walls that appeared to be made of the same mysterious metal as the exterior. Emergency lighting strips along the walls began to glow as they approached, providing enough light to see clearly in both directions. Lisa checked the air quality with their basic scanner and found it safe to breathe, though the atmosphere inside. The structure was completely different from the jungle outside. The air was clean and dry, with no trace of the humidity and chemical smells that filled the jungle. The temperature was exactly comfortable for humans, despite the fact that the structure had been sealed for an unknown period of time. They entered the corridor and began exploring the interior of the pyramid. The walls were covered with more symbol patterns and what appeared to be technical diagrams showing complex machinery and star charts. Jake recognized some of the star patterns as showing galactic configurations from millions of years in the past, indicating that the structure was far older than any known civilization. The corridor led to a vast underground chamber that extended far beyond the external boundaries of the pyramid. The chamber was filled with machinery and equipment that appeared to be in perfect working condition, despite its obvious age. Banks of lights activated automatically as they entered, providing clear illumination throughout the enormous space. In the center of the chamber, Jake saw something that made him stop breathing for several seconds. Resting in a specially constructed dock was a spacecraft unlike anything in the current galactic fleet. The ship was over 5 kilometers long, with a design that combined organic curves with geometric precision. The hull appeared to be made of the same adaptive metal as the pyramid walls and pulsed with the same internal rhythm. Lisa grabbed Jake's arm and pointed toward the ship's hull where symbols were clearly visible. The symbols were larger versions of the same mathematical patterns they had seen throughout the structure, but arranged in ways that suggested they might be the ship's name or identification. Jake realized they had discovered something that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. As they approached the massive spacecraft, Jake's scanner went completely silent for the first time since they had landed on the planet. The device showed no readings at all, as if it had been turned off, though the power indicator still showed it was functioning normally. Lisa suggested that the ship might be generating some kind of field that interfered with their primitive technology. They walked around the ship's hull looking for an entrance, while Jake tried to comprehend the magnitude of their discovery. Spacecraft was clearly designed for war, with weapon systems visible along its hull that looked powerful enough to destroy entire fleets. But more importantly, the ship's design and the mathematical symbols covering its surface suggested a connection to humanity that defied everything they knew about galactic history. Jake found an entrance ramp that extended from the ship's hull to the chamber floor. The ramp appeared to be made of the same adaptive metal as everything else in the ancient facility, and it felt warm and alive under their feet. Lisa followed, close behind him as they climbed toward what appeared to be an airlock designed for beings roughly the same size as humans. The airlock opened automatically when they approached and sealed behind them with a soft hissing sound. Jake felt his ears pop slightly as the pressure adjusted to match the ship's internal atmosphere. When the inner door opened, they found themselves standing in a corridor that stretched in both directions with the same emergency lighting system they had seen throughout the pyramid structure. The ship's interior was vast beyond imagination. The corridors were wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side, and the ceiling was so high that their flashlight beams could barely reach it. The walls were covered with control panels and display screens that activated as they passed, showing information in the same mathematical symbol language they had been seeing throughout their exploration. Jake noticed that the control interfaces seemed designed for beings with hands and fingers very similar to humans. The button placement and screen heights were exactly right for human use, which seemed impossible given the obvious age of the technology. Lisa pointed out that even the air composition inside the ship was perfectly breathable for humans without any need for environmental suits or breathing equipment. They followed the main corridor toward what appeared to be the front of the ship, based on the directional indicators they could see on the walls. After walking for almost 20 minutes, they reached a massive chamber that could only be the command center. The room was filled with control stations arranged around a central platform that offered a commanding view of the entire space. As they entered the command center, more systems activated automatically. Large display screens came online showing star charts and technical readouts, while banks of lights illuminated workstations that appeared ready for immediate use. Jake approached the central command platform and saw that it was equipped with controls that seemed intuitively familiar despite being completely alien in design. Suddenly, a voice spoke from speakers throughout the command center. The voice was clearly artificial, but spoke in a language that sounded remarkably similar to ancient human dialects that Jake had studied during his archaeological training. Though he could not understand every word, the general meaning was clear enough to understand. The voice identified itself as Oracle and explained that it was the ship's artificial intelligence system. Oracle said that it had been waiting for someone with the correct genetic markers to activate the ship's primary systems. It had detected Jake's presence when he first touched the pyramid's outer wall and had been monitoring their progress through the facility. Jake found that he could communicate with Oracle in English, and the artificial intelligence responded in the same language, though, with an accent that reminded him of very old recordings from Earth's ancient civilizations. Oracle explained that the ship was called the Terran Vengeance, and that it was designed as a command vessel for coordinating entire battle fleets during a great war that had ended millions of years ago. Lisa asked Oracle about the builders of the ship, and the artificial intelligence provided information that challenged everything they thought they knew about galactic history. Oracle explained that the ship's creators were called the predecessors, and that they had been the dominant civilization in the galaxy long before any of the current species had developed space travel. The predecessors had originated on Earth millions of years ago before some great catastrophe had forced them to spread across the galaxy in search of new homes. They had built thousands of ships like the Terran Vengeance and established colonies on hundreds of worlds before mysteriously disappearing from galactic history. Oracle revealed that humans were direct descendants of the predecessors and carried genetic markers that identified them as the rightful inheritors of predecessor technology. This explained why Jake had been able to solve the entrance puzzle and why the ship's systems responded to human operators while remaining invisible to the scanning equipment used by other galactic species. Jake asked Oracle why the ship and facility had remained hidden for so long, and the artificial intelligence explained that everything had been designed with advanced camouflage systems that made them appear to be natural geological formations to anyone who did not carry predecessor genetic markers. The alien research teams orbiting the planet would never be able to detect the facility no matter how advanced their scanning equipment might be. While Jake and Oracle continued their conversation, Lisa explored the command center and discovered that many of the control stations were already active and displaying real-time information about the galactic situation. She could see displays showing the positions of the alien research fleet in orbit around the planet and detailed information about their ships and capabilities. Oracle noticed Lisa's interest in the tactical displays and explained that the Terran Vengeance was equipped with sensor systems far more advanced than anything used by current galactic civilizations. The ship could monitor and analyze every vessel within several light years and provide complete technical specifications for any technology it encountered. Jake realized that they now had access to capabilities that could change the balance of power in the galaxy, but he also understood the enormous responsibility that came with such knowledge. He asked Oracle about the ship's weapons systems and learned that the Terran Vengeance was capable of single-handedly defeating the entire current galactic fleet if necessary. The artificial intelligence explained that the ship would only respond to commands from someone carrying predecessor genetic markers. and only after that person had proven themselves worthy through tests of intelligence, courage, and moral character. Oracle said that many predecessor descendants had visited the facility over the millions of years since it was built, but none had been deemed ready to command such powerful technology. Jake felt the weight of history pressing down on him as he realized that this moment would determine not just his own fate but the future of humanity in the galaxy. He asked Oracle what the tests would involve, and the artificial intelligence explained that they were designed to ensure that anyone commanding predecessor technology would use it responsibly and for the benefit of all sentient beings. Before Oracle could begin the testing process, alarms began sounding throughout the command center. The tactical displays showed that the alien research fleet in orbit had detected massive energy signatures emanating from the planet's surface. Commander Vexitar was leading a strike force toward the surface with orders to investigate and eliminate any potential threats to galactic security. Lisa monitored the alien communications and reported that Commander Vexitar was convinced that the humans had somehow activated dangerous ancient technology that could threaten the stability of the galaxy. The strike force was equipped with the most advanced weapons available and had authorization to use lethal force if they determined that the situation could not be contained through peaceful means. Oracle informed Jake that the alien strike force would reach the pyramid facility within 6 hours and that their weapons were capable of destroying the entire jungle region if they believed it was necessary to eliminate the perceived threat. The artificial intelligence asked Jake if he was prepared to accept responsibility for commanding the Terran vengeance and protecting not just humanity, but all of the innocent beings who might be caught in the conflict. Jake looked at Lisa and saw his own determination reflected in her eyes. They had come too far and discovered too much to turn back now. The aliens who had laughed at human capabilities were about to learn that they had seriously underestimated the species they had dismissed as primitive and irrelevant. Jake told Oracle that he was ready to accept the tests and prove himself worthy of commanding predecessor technology. The artificial intelligence acknowledged his decision and began activating systems throughout the ship that had been dormant for millions of years. The Terran vengeance was awakening from its long sleep and preparing for battle once again. As the ship's systems came online, Jake felt a strange sensation as if something deep in his genetic memory was recognizing technology that his ancestors had built long ago. He approached the central command position and placed his hands on the control interfaces that seemed designed specifically for human use. Oracle's voice filled the command center as it began the first test that would determine whether Jake Morrison was worthy to command the most powerful warship ever built by his ancient ancestors. The future of humanity, and perhaps the entire galaxy, would depend on the choices he made in the next few hours. Oracle's first test began immediately as the command center transformed around Jake. The walls became transparent, showing a holographic recreation of an ancient battle that had taken place millions of years ago. Jake found himself commanding a predecessor fleet facing overwhelming odds against an enemy that threatened to destroy entire star systems filled with innocent civilians. The test required Jake to make split-second decisions about weapon deployment, fleet movements, and civilian evacuations while under intense pressure. Oracle monitored not just his tactical choices, but his moral reasoning and concern for minimizing casualties even among enemy forces. Jake realized that the artificial intelligence was evaluating whether he would use power responsibly rather than simply testing his ability to win battles. The second test placed Jake in command of a damaged predecessor ship with a crew that included representatives from dozens of different species. Some crew members questioned his authority, while others showed open hostility toward his decisions. Jake had to maintain unit cohesion and complete a dangerous rescue mission while dealing with internal conflicts that threatened to tear the crew apart. Lisa watched from a nearby console as Jake worked through each scenario with increasing confidence. She could see that the ship's systems were responding to his commands as if they recognized something familiar in his genetic makeup. The Terran vengeance was slowly awakening around them, with more systems coming online every few minutes. The third and final test was the most challenging, as Oracle presented Jake with a scenario where using the ship's full weapons capability would save humanity from destruction, but would also result in the complete annihilation of several alien species that posed a threat to human colonies. Jake had to choose between guaranteed safety for his own people and the possibility of finding a peaceful solution that might save everyone but carried significant risks. Jake chose the more difficult path that protected all sentient life, even though it meant accepting greater danger for humanity. Oracle analyzed his decision for several long minutes before announcing that he had passed all 3 tests and proven himself worthy of commanding predecessor technology. The artificial intelligence formally recognized Jake Morrison as Admiral of the Terran Vengeance and began transferring full control of the ship's systems to his command. As Jake took his position at the central command station, he felt a strange connection forming between his mind and the ship's artificial intelligence. Oracle explained that predecessor commanders had always shared a mental link with their vessels, allowing for instantaneous communication and perfect coordination during combat operations. Jake found that he could now sense the ship's condition and capabilities as if they were extensions of his own body. The tactical displays showed that Commander Vextar's strike force had reached the planet's surface and was moving through the jungle toward the pyramid facility. The alien force included 50 heavily armed soldiers from 6 different species, along with advanced scanning equipment designed to penetrate any camouflage or defensive systems they might encounter. Lisa monitored alien communications and reported that Commander Vextar was convinced that the humans had somehow activated a doomsday weapon that could threaten the entire galaxy. The strike force had orders to capture or eliminate Jake and Lisa before they could cause further damage to galactic security. Several alien voices were already discussing the need to destroy the entire jungle region to prevent the spread of dangerous ancient technology. Jake realized that peaceful communication was no longer possible. The aliens had made their decision based on fear and prejudice rather than facts, and they would not listen to reason. He asked Oracle to prepare the Terran Vengeance for immediate departure from the underground facility while maintaining full camouflage until the last possible moment. The ship's systems responded instantly to Jake's commands as millions of years of dormant technology came alive throughout the massive vessel. The Terran Vengeance began rising from its underground dock while the pyramid facility above reconfigured itself to allow the ship's passage. Advanced camouflage systems kept the entire process invisible to the alien strike force that was now less than 10 kilometers away. Commander Vextar's voice crackled through the jungle communications as he reported massive energy readings that seemed to be coming from underground. The Thraxian team leader suggested that the humans had triggered some kind of geological instability that might cause volcanic activity across the entire region. Several strike force members recommended immediate withdrawal to a safe distance, before whatever the humans had activated could spread beyond the jungle. Jake decided that the time for hiding was over. He ordered Oracle to deactivate all camouflage systems and reveal the Terran Vengeance in its full glory. The massive warship burst from the jungle canopy like a mountain rising from the earth. Trees and vegetation fell away as the 5-kilometer-long vessel climbed toward the sky with its hull gleaming in the afternoon sunlight. The alien strike force stopped their advance and stared in shock at the impossible sight before them. Commander. Vextar's voice transmitted an emergency alert to the orbital fleet, describing a massive, unidentified vessel that had somehow appeared from beneath the jungle surface. The Corvani team leader suggested that their scanners had been malfunctioning and that the ship had been there all along, hidden by technology beyond their understanding. Jake opened a communication channel to the entire alien research fleet and identified himself as Admiral Jake Morrison, commanding the Terran Vengeance. His voice was broadcast simultaneously to every ship in the orbital fleet and to the strike force on the planet's surface. He calmly explained that humans were the descendants of the galaxy's original dominant civilization and that they were reclaiming their rightful place among the stars. The reaction from the alien fleet was immediate chaos, as commanders tried to understand how a primitive human had gained control of technology that made their most advanced vessels look like children's toys. The Zephyrian flagship attempted to target the Terran Vengeance with its primary weapons, but found that their targeting systems could not lock onto the human ship. Commander Vex's Tar ordered his strike force to attack Jake's position, but Oracle informed the Admiral that the alien weapons were incapable of penetrating the ship's defensive systems. Jake decided to demonstrate the futility of resistance without causing unnecessary casualties. He ordered Oracle to disable the alien fleet's weapons and propulsion systems while leaving their life support and communication systems fully functional. The Terran Vengeance fired beams of energy that passed harmlessly through the hulls of every alien vessel in the fleet. Within seconds, every weapon system and engine in the entire research expedition had been permanently disabled, while the crews remained completely unharmed. The demonstration of power was so precise and overwhelming that even the most arrogant alien commanders fell silent in shock. Jake opened another communication channel to address the entire Galactic Council rather than just the research fleet. He explained that humanity had never been the primitive species that other civilizations believed them to be. Humans were the inheritors of predecessor technology and had simply been waiting for the right moment to reclaim their place in galactic civilization. He announced that the Terran Vengeance was only one of many predecessor vessels hidden throughout the galaxy, and that Oracle's databases contained the locations of hundreds of similar facilities. Humanity now had access to technology that was millions of years more advanced than anything possessed by current galactic civilizations, but they had no intention of using that advantage to dominate or destroy other species. Jake proposed a new relationship between humanity and the rest of the galaxy based on mutual respect, rather than the condescending attitude that had characterized previous interactions. He offered to share certain predecessor technologies that could benefit all species while making it clear that any attempts to attack or subjugate humanity would be met with overwhelming force. The response from the Galactic Council was swift acceptance of Jake's proposals. Even the most aggressive species realized that resistance was futile when faced with technology that could disable their entire fleets without causing a single casualty. Commander Vex Tar formally apologized for his previous treatment of the human researchers and requested permission to return to the orbital station. Jake granted the request and watched as the disabled alien vessels were towed back to the research station by automated systems that Oracle had activated throughout the star system. Lisa joined him at the command position, and they looked out at the green jungle world that had changed their lives forever. Oracle informed Jake that the ship was ready to depart for Earth, where the real work would begin. The artificial intelligence had identified 17 other predecessor facilities within human space that contained the technology and knowledge needed to transform humanity into the galactic power they were always meant to be. As the Terran Vengeance climbed toward the stars, Jake thought about the aliens who had laughed at human capabilities just a few days ago. Their laughter had stopped, completely replaced by a new understanding of humanity's true potential. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity would never again be dismissed as primitive.